Gilg Jew, Gilg J as Gilg Pharick.
As Maughold as your kiaull seo sé Claare na Gael vis goltaia cartnish, as bavaliam shiwish altacha. My name is Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert de Carslach.
Have you ever heard tell of old Bobby Bob?
And it's my pleasure to bring you this bilingual programme Claare na Gael, with part of it in the English language, as leis pert Eliagi Sagilg, and with another part of it in the Manx Gaelic, Chinian Amera, the mother tongue of Ellen Vanning, the Isle of Man. As Banach and Jurish, well, having walked now to Ramsey, Dorothy Wordsworth, her 18-year-old nephew Willie Wordsworth, and her brother William's brother-in-law Henry Hutchinson have found pleasant accommodation in a cottage at the foot of Ballure Glen. It's run by Mrs. Brew and Miss Trivett. Tan van Helsing is na Fiadelia, Brisha Stiach on Shamer na Harker. Tan Count Dracula on Shen, as Graham Choneg Mina Harker, and Gulni Benek Slate lesh Fool, as Saya Kion Sheeser Jonathan Harker, Tan Alai Tolvenich Erlyabi. Now, this programme is being broadcast first on the 17th of March, so we have an opportunity to enjoy some old favourites connected with St Patrick, including two by CHRISTY MOORE, with one of which we start. But you have to forget all about the fact that St Patrick was actually from the south, what is now South Wales. Anshabi, Tashu Geishak, Ris Radio Vanning, Stashun and Ashun, Viscura Scalia Mach, Waidulish, Allen Vanning.
Patrick was a gentleman, he came from decent people, built the church in Dublin town and on it bunned a steeple. His father was a Gallagher, his mother was a Brady, his aunt was in a Shaughnessy and his uncle was a Grady. The Wicklow hills are very high, and so's the hill of Hotzer. There's a hill much higher, still much higher, nor the Botzer. On the top of this high hill St Patrick preached a sermon, drove the frogs into the bogs and banished all the vermin. There's not a mile of Ayrton's Isle where dirty vermin musters. There he punned a deer for a foot, then he murdered them in clusters. The toads went pop and the frogs went hop, stop dash into the water. The snakes come in the suicide to save himself from slaughter. 900,000 reptiles blue, which armed with sweet discourses, dined on them and killed the loo in soups and second courses. The blind ones crawling in the grass disgusted all the nation. Down to hell with the holy spell, he changed their situation. No wonder then the Irish lad should be so gay and frisky. Sure old pal, she taught them that as well as making whiskey. No wonder then the saint himself should understand distilling. His mother came to sheeping shop near the town of Enniskillen. Was I but so fortunate as to be back in Munster, I'd be bounded from that ground and never more would Munster. There St Patrick planted turf and cabbages and pretties, pigs galore, McGramma's store, all their boys and ladies.
bit of owl nonsense from Christy Moore, and his song was followed by what they call on the album Irvin's Polka, obviously one suggested by Andy Irvin, but it's the Walls of Limerick. Dorothy Wordsworth describes her pleasure at the setting of the cottage in Ballure, where they've had accommodation overnight from Mrs. Brew and Miss Trivett, and she was up early to admire the area the following morning. And that would be Thursday the 10th of July in the year 1828, and she writes, Henry and Willie took breakfast, then walked to Maughold Head and Maughold Kirk, the first where the cross was planted. Now, her words suggest that this was the first Christian mission to the island. Tradition has Maughold landing in this area where there was already a monastery, which he joined and became leader of. The traditional list of bishops has Germanus, Conindrius and Romulus before Maughold. The monastery would probably have been preceded by individuals who arrived to set up their individual cells or kiaulls, more or less as hermits, before the development of some form of communal worship and the development of religious settlements rather than individual hermits. Leis casa, ren ciaue drai sísar aliavi mar de berchi tilget vai chin dare, as renne lim oren. Ach liorish an tre seo van allu na chiadurish, as vei kummel soes naiege a kudach on van allen kasherik. Hugge Count Stapdal Tajemersen, Cart mar vaginteg Lucy Wach chau muige in tai meriu, as renne kreutjul gaure gromme. Na sója gaure gromme renne kreutjul, gouds ren shin, a shingen troggle soes na crucifix an ein, gull eye. Esh, de daltajum rennen re hollis feliel, gouds ren bodjul moer du, shola herrische spare, as tre henk sailja a lampe gas lesh ford and Quincy, a vaction beg ach Gael fes. Ren shaw, gouds vissen gienair, snauw maag foon goele, as lessene vulje vai guller brische fauschrich, verlees de backus en inne degger o shen. Ren van Helsing, Art as mish, glaciige eiges Mina Harker, as ish liorish en tre shaw, ver jarnen ennelek. Now, one of the finest versions of the lorica, St. Patrick's Breastplate, is a setting by Sean Davy from his suite The Pilgrim, with vocal by Rita Connolly. The Deer's Cry.
Today, through the strength of heaven, light of sun, radiance of moon, splendor of fire, speed of lightning, swiftness of wind, depth of the sea, stability of earth, firmness of rock. I arise today through God's strength to pilot me, God's eye to look before me, God's wisdom to guide me, God's way to lie before me, God's shield to protect me from all who shall wish me
Well, the Deer's Cry is well known here in the island for the wonderful visual conception of it by Archibald Knox. That was a beautiful musical setting of it by Sean Davies, sung by Rita Connolly, and another beautiful setting of it later on. Leis an enel seo, bhí liga mach scrach o cai choed as de bhrisha clísin, cho trom chriach drawi gian dawnish, de jinne hina trúd machlísin, der a lam of esh. Rishalid na ghe, vi no lais stedek gin kuna as as dai. Van edenek mor sken. Leis benid, as trimit curitus all yorish a núl va sleit na melen as na legenan as a smegalek. Vayan scornachek, ren rai shilja kiel falle. Van a sulianek, kai leis acham. Huggy roshan edin na lawan. Gamalashal, huggy roshan edin na lawan bach de croidiatek. As benid oxen cowra jurg grey maglach account. As vai chow chulu jow henk dobber an ingel tregit. Va cor a screg aglach, jean de veach blew de heilje gemacht trias gin kiaull. Gauw van Helsing kesme der rai, as chiarne a corlier de meal herish a chorbek. Gauws renart, lug de jean an edinek ris shalid de michrish jelach, rai mach as an chamber. The views of Ramsey Bay delightful from the head, says Dorothy Wordsworth in a diary, a fine green steep, on the edge of which stands the pretty chapel, with one bell outside, an ancient pedestal curiously carved, Christ on the cross, the mother and infant Jesus, the Manx arms and other devices. Well, this is the Maughold parish cross, made of St. Bees sandstone, which shows the monastery's relationship with Furness Abbey. The cross dates from around 1300, and the four sides have the crucifixion with the three legs of man below, the Virgin and Child with a cross and flower below, a kneeling figure with an oak leaf above and a square and a plant below, and an oak leaf with a rose above and the grail. There are paintings and photographs showing this pillar standing outside the gates of the church, but then in 1937 it was moved to a special plinth opposite the cross house, which had been erected in 1906, sheltering the other carved stones in it. And then since 1989 the Maughold parish cross has stood inside the church itself to protect it from further weathering. Flute of Matt MOLLOY, John Carty on fiddle and the guitar of Arty McGLYNN, recorded in Matt Molloy's own pub in Westport in County Mayo, and the tune was The Green Fields of Glentown. Siodiw stasiwn yn asiwn radio fanning. A si Claare na Gael and Claare Shaw, Mish Robert Cutting Carswell, Robert a Carslach.
Did the other hear tell of old Bobby Bob?
To Claare na Gael reclash na shacht and lug giguller scalia mach and chirchir, gurish imedi Claare and radio fanning elia, a shen trud and chraman erager der inedeg radio fanning. As de Claare na Gael master na chieden door en de podcast en visvergeten nasty in de radio vanning, na trud en reich de podcast jou, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, na Alexa. At the time that Dorothy Wordsworth saw it, the Maughold parish cross was standing outside the gates of the church, and, she says, Near it, the square foundation surrounded with steps of another cross, on which is now placed a small sundial. Well, the sundial was erected in 1666 as a memorial to Edward Christian, whose attempt to rise against the Stanleys in 1643 had been unsuccessful. He'd been imprisoned in Peel Castle, bar for a period during the Commonwealth, and he died in Peel Castle. The sundial was made by another member of the Christian family, another Edward or possibly Evan, and the inscription says Ed or Ev Christian Fake It. 1666, Edward or Evan, whatever it is, somebody Christian made it, 1666, latitude 52 degrees 8 minutes. It was damaged by a charabanc in 1934, I think it was, but repaired by the vicar and wardens. And then 2 years later, 1936, there was fierce parish resistance to a proposal to move it somewhere else. Ren van Helsing Sancherachrom. Tatolena, said Jonathan, Jane leaders the fisain fuddy suda follow, Jinu. And not but Jinu vegrish of henser mina vach, rishalit nere, der visier chorori hina chaurel, signed out duste. Renne tomme kjan je enrit lau ons ostje voer, as leshen gawe toyach de chor scutch beg des en edin. As olju en trev en ben chesje ega kummel en edinek eder a der lau, as ko en zaag verbrishen en griede glaasjen. Giri mi soes a dolan, as jich mi maag as een onjug. Verpaltje rei Holleson, as huis van mi gin, dat mi fagen Quincy Morris, ren rai herishalon deg, as volg ei heen se skadu, je bilje juur fi woer. Vi cor feest orm smunjen a fairways junushen. Ach, Cartersen giel mi illig blew, gouds ren e duste ons peurt deren, as hindemi gesaljavi. Sinedin ege, as genderis mordebege, verkaurer je jindis, gin tigeleson. Now here we have the Irish tenors singing Hail, Glorious Patrick. The Irish tenors, that's John McDermott, Finbar Wright and Anthony Cairns, and they were singing the hymn Hail, Glorious Patrick. Ve Jean, de rawi currit a sharen with shalet na ghe. As eish, ve Jean de ren sledden en brische stjachers en dol tajemach, as renne moest de soes. Van wen eg a doucht eg a gleisige tabi, as hien day hugge leis na raigen eg schient mach, mor de bergie chi kleim ei. Ach, tjalirach, jaar ni stjach ad rish. As lugji korkujach na uljanek, renni kummel de lauwen roosjen edinek, as fi bibberni der van ljabi foe krauw. Os enem ye kreet een bunjay shaw, Dilly Harker. Early Seward, early van Helsing, kreet on, kreet Haker, kreet Borre. Vina, veen, kirite, kreet een bunjay, een oel shaw. Me ye, de wel shaw mate. As lukt de kast no soeskus a glunen, renne boele Gael lau naie geelje de kai. Les gleisige tavi renne limme wijn javi, as gawe tuig der taarn musje nedergegge. Ulju en dunnele sonsen doucht, les fame eeb chalirach. Now this general view of Maughold village green with its sundial and Kirkmichael itself, well, it seems that recently there had been, back in the July of 1828, some refurbishment going on, and Dorothy Wordsworth's aesthetic sensibility has been offended by it. The whole, she says, lately barbarously whitewashed, with church and roof a glaring contrast to the grey thatched cottages and green trees which partly embower the church. Numerous are the gravestones surrounding that neat and humble building, a sanctuary taken from the waste, where fern and heath grow round and overgrow the graves. I sat on the hill, while Henry sought the Holy Well, visited once a year by the Manx men and women where they leave their offering, a pin or any other trifle. Now, the best time was apparently when the books were open, as they used to say. That means when a service was being held. So why they weren't in church, of course, they go to the Holy Well, I suppose, so it wasn't quite so bad as just not going anywhere, not going to near the church at all. Like many other holy wells in the island, St Maughold's Well was literally a sight for sore eyes, and it was sought for the relief it brought, and because of the relief that it did bring to people, as they left offerings there, and it was often some shiny token that was left. But other wells, you get pieces of cloth tied on or near them, and here, as she mentions, a pin or any other trifle, it might be a small coin perhaps. Well now, this is a song written for the 1940 film Little Nellie Kelly, and it was sung in that film by Judy Garland as she marched along with the New York St. Patrick's Day Parade. This, though, is a version from about 20 years later. I think it was about 1960 it was made, by Ruby Murray. Of course, Ruby Murray at one time, if you turned the radio on, Irish music, as far as anybody knows, was songs of the kind sung by Ruby Murray, although she had a great way with songs like Teddy O'Neill, for example. And this is that song from that 1940 film, Little Nellie Kelly, about the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And this is... it's a great day for the Irish.
Oh, awoke me up this morning and I heard a joyful song from the throats of happy Irishmen, 100,000 strong. Sure it was the Hibernian Brigade, lining up for to start the big parade. So I fetched my Sunday bonnet and the flag I love so well, and I bought myself a shamrock just to wear in my lapel. Don't you know that today's March 17? It's the day for the wearing of the green. It's a great day for the Irish. It's a great day for fair. The sidewalks of New York are thick with blarney. For sure you'd think New York was old Killarney. It's a great day for the shamrock, for the flags in full array. We're feeling so inspiring, sure, because of all the Irish. It's a great, great day. Begosh, there's not a cop to stop the raiding. Begorra, all the cops are out parading. It's a great day for the shamrock, for the flags in full array. And as we go swinging, every Irish heart is singing. It's a great, great day.
A song written by Hollywood composer, arranger and producer Roger Edens. Now, his parents were what's known in the United States as Scotch-Irish, people whose ancestors had come to Ulster from Scotland and subsequently emigrated to the USA. And It's a Great Day for the Irish was sung there by Ruby Murray. Parted with H and W and walked leisurely back to Ramsey. Fine views of Ramsey Bay, the orange-coloured bar and lowly town, the green steeps. Walked on to Ramsey, the town very pretty seen from the quay as at the mountain's foot. Rich wood climbing up the mountain glen and spread along the hillsides. Several good houses among the trees. Well, the party had the previous day taken a meal at Mrs. Duke's, a lodging house just off the Ramsey Promenade in Strand Street. On her way back, she says, called at Mrs. Duke's. Oh, the confusion and dirt of her kitchen and her servant, as rough and wild as if just fetched from a mountain hovel, and Mrs. Duke herself, smart, pretty, and even cheerful in the midst of distress. A lodger was in bed, blinded the night before, with playing with gunpowder, and she, jaded with dressing his wounds and hanging over him for hours. Well, that's quite a responsibility she was taking on, and Dorothy had earlier disregarded the dirtiness of the house because of Mrs. Duke's kindness. Cyrryd ter hachert, insta William McGlynn, Dame in Fergach. Lief van Helsing te graaie Mina te vissemer, o gin ridderach de haweli, genodde ngol roud fos, gin code chaus to Michel eschen. Ren venegge, through den aachim as grain as burre, fagen gauw shigge hon, as ish chalirach jeru de trias heen, gawi graim jay as dillier, genee, Jonathan, geneiden dut vergeel me, tammy horrens de loernach, morta visserek G, gin en al de geneschen geel duts. Signed you tannach den merem, tanny merish na kurgen shen ni goil kereeljeed. Henk graaiege de wee debbejach aus lori, as leschen corbailus G, hiarne schiese de wee na hai oirle javach, as gawi huikish de chon, as gawi huikish de chon. Hug van Helsing as mish eber kunach uit na nis. Ren na nallu kummelsoese crucifix beg ege. there from Castleconnell in County Limerick, FIANA NI CHONAILL. A few years ago, members of MacTulloch Vanning arranged a visit by her to the island when she played in concerts and sessions, toured schools and held a number of workshops.
Station, Manx Radio.
Stasiwn yn asiwn ta Radio Fanning is yn sio tasiw geisach rys Claare na Gael. Mer yn pin Robert Gadin Carswell, Robert y Carslach.
Have you heard tell of owl Bobby Bob?
Dwrt yn hollow yn sach cwn yn dy sach. Na gin goel al ma fin. Tasyn yn sio. As chaws ta sio fagus dut. Cha nod rid eigi jit hoods. Ta was sausje noch, a signed on ve cwn as goil corl cújach. Rennie Bibberny as vina toast, as ish cummel shees a cion cliw a dunja sheshag. Tregiria, van goon ben egge slijt lesh fool savol ren de melenek bentendish, as savol van lot kiel fauslits a scornachek liga maag beinen. Geleers honnicky shen, rennie tarn gaure dromme, lesh dobber an angel as Dorothy Morhanish masten a sachen ba ploege. Njau Glen, geneiden dou bentenrish, na pege rish. O, dan mishe te nish a nooit smether, as de wel oordesen goil aal smoerosh. Saw Lore de Shigger. Genel kiel en shen vina. She neer arm clashen liederhu. A ginnen clashen they jeeds, as a ginnum clashen they vods. Home to Mrs. Brew's. Walked on sands to small rocky caverns, and after dinner with Miss Trivett to Mrs. Hoskins' deserted cottage, once a place of revelry, or rather of elegant festivity, for she was, they say, a very amiable woman. The spot is now desolate, and the garden destroyed, all but the gravel walks. Yet still many a garden flower grows wild. It was since tenanted by a Mrs. Stepney and her pretended husband, who lived concealed for 2 years, were at length discovered by agents of her real husband, and a divorce obtained. Well, you may recall in the Reverend Thomas Stevens' A Poetical Guide to the Isle of Man from 1832 that, as he came out of Ramsey, first as ye slow ascend the hill of Luaig, observe the bay, along the coast each craig, and gentle villa, Stepney's sweet abode, which lies below the high and craggy road. So we're going up the Slue Lieg, and there's the houses up there where this villa was. And it was obviously a cause célèbre, recalled by the Reverend Stephen in his poem in 1832, but it was already history in 1828, when Dorothy Wordsworth was there. Well, let's have that other song from CHRISTY MOORE about St. Patrick now, this time St. Patrick's arrival.
You heard of St. Denis of France, he never ridden much for to brag, and you heard of St. George and his lance, who killed the old heathenish dragon. The sense that the Welshman and Scot are a couple of plentiful pipers might just as well go to pot when compared to the patron of vipers, St. Patrick of Ireland mid-air. He sailed to the Emerald Isle on a lump of a paving stone mounted, bet the steamboat be a mile, which mighty good sailing was counted. Says he, the salt water, I think, has made me unmerciful thirsty. Bring me a flagon to the rink to wash down the Mulligrub's bursty of drink that is fit for a saint. He preached then with wonderful force, the ignorant natives a teaching with pints washed down each discourse. Says he, I detest your dry preaching. The people in wonderment struck at the pastor so pious and civil exclaimed, we're for you in the owl book, we'll heave our blind gods to the devil who dwells in hot water below. This finished, our worshipful man went to visit an elegant fellow whose practice each cool afternoon was to get most delightfully mellow. That day with the barrel of beer he was drinking away with the band, and says, Patrick, it's grand to be here. I drank nothing to speak of since landing. Give me a pull from your pot. Well, he lifted the pewter in sport. Believe me, I tell you, it's no fable. A gallon he drank from the quart, left it back full on the table. A miracle, everyone cried. All took a pull on the stingo. They were mighty good hands at that trade. They drank till they fell, yet be jingo. The pot still froth o'er the brim. Next day said the host, it's a fast, and they've nothing to eat but cold mutton. On Fridays would make such repast, except an unchristian like glutton. Says, Pat, stop this nonsense, I beg. What you tell me is nothing but gammon. And the host, he brought down the lamb's leg. Pat ordered it turn into salmon, and the leg must politely complied. Heard, I suppose, long ago, how the snakes in a manner most antic he marched to the county Mayo, ordered them all into the Atlantic, hence never use water to drink. The people of Ireland determine, with mighty good reason, I think, for Patrick has filled it with vermin and snakes and such other things. He was as fine a man as you'd meet from Fairhead to Kilcrumper, though under the sod he is laid. Let's all drink his health in a bumper. I wish he was here that my glass he might by art magic replenish. Since he is not, why, alas, me old song must come to a finish, because all the liquor is gone.
Well, both those songs by CHRISTY MOORE, Patrick Was a Gentleman, that we began with, and that one, St. Patrick's Arrival, were from his 1978 album, The Iron Behind the Velvet, written by CHRISTY MOORE in the same spirit, I suppose, as the traditional songs about St. Kevin of Glendalough. Dorothy Wordsworth gives us more of the Stepney saga, more of the Stepney gossip, in fact. She is now married to her paramour, who's retaken his own name and given it to her. The parties all cousins, and as an alleviation of her guilt, it's affirmed that she was in youth attached to her present husband, believed him to be dead, and was prevailed on by friends to marry the former. They returned to a cottage near the old one, going to build, and everyone visited her as heretofore. Back by road to bridge, crossing deep glen behind Mrs. Brew's house. So this is the top of Ballure Glen now. Strolled in the wood beyond the mill and missed my companion. After tea had a charming walk, called on Mrs. Lamotte, the doctor's wife, her husband's father, driven from France by the persecutions under Louis XIV. Well, in fact, Dominique Lamotte was commissioned by Louis XIV as a marine surgeon in the French Navy, rather than being persecuted by him. In 1760, Dominique Lamotte's ship, the St. Lawrence, was captured by the British. The gingy breunes Jim Cordeelrish Mahalshness, as kerachami les surrants eerne shirunen oer shaw, mavis, Loris Gentis na Kareiler biem, riddenach arach chit etherain. Chine mache reichen, as renne fille stiachi onze chliwege, as vish tamelt wie na lai ons shennes Kenia. Iche oren skinnachion kromejek, les sulien ren mieke de tash skin de toel strone ek va a krauw, van bielegge sait goristalien. Lord tamelt henk na sagen ek de vee slew, menik as smoo fes. As doet as lot is cunid Kareilach, Jenemy de vee ginu prowlus je smacht ege en njedigen gus a goed smoo, as nish early Seward, inch thou ulju mechionege. Ach, ra vai de fissemer skiel jeen, inch thou ulju ter veon. Dinch me de girach na hager, as deiste as ve gin de ve gin enjachten. Now this is another setting of St Patrick's breastplate in Irish this time, a setting by Marie Dunn, Laa'l Pharick, sung by Patricia Burke de Souza. The voice of Patricia Burke de Souza with the uilleann pipes of David Fadden, the harp of Mary O'Donnell and the violin of Denise Doyle in that setting by Marie Dunn. Ach ren de toel stroon eg a brebbel, as ren de soelien eg a lonrige, gouds dinch mi day en acht ver lauwen jou vichenach a gount, gommel de ven jesje sa gomme aglach eegi, les je wielek a lot fauslit gliw. Ve simoil daw ag y tre shen da agan, chaws van edden ledden de chorri ben gleisiach leis bred and doltajum skin chion cromich, de raune lauen de mila as de graiach struge of fault frenich. Dominic Lamotte was among the officers held as prisoners of war in Castle Rushen, and tradition has it that he successfully ministered to the governor's wife, and in gratitude he was released, and he married Susanna Corrin, and of their 11 children, Frederick Lamotte was the doctor in Ramsey for 35 years, and that's whose wife Dorothy Wordsworth met. Well, there'll be 2 hours of the best chill-out music for your Sunday evening here on their way from 7 to 9 with Chris Pearson. And then at 9, Judith Leigh will be easing into Monday morning with Sundown. We close Claare ni Gael with music by Piper Conor Mallon, who was here for Unchruniach with the band Cunla a few years ago. This is the title track of his album, Unearthed. Ach Sianei Cartnish, and so until the next time, this is Robert Cutting Cartwell, Robert de Carslach.
Old Bobby Bob.
Wishing you a very good night. Eve I'm a Chrieriw, as Orsalier, as my Yeri and Shed you will you.
Every so often, you're unearthed, my mannerism, relics of the past, uncovered on accident and up for interpretation. The strangest winds blow the dirt off that certain eye room